Don't settle for a fake snarler when you can have Beard Brothers' premium range of all-natural sausages. Proudly New Zealand made, you'll find them fresh in your local Foursquare, New World and Pack and Save. Beard Brothers, crafted with care, the old school way.
Good time to introduce our next guest. She appeared, former Whanganui Member of Parliament, former List MP for the National Party. But she is perhaps symptomatic of what we are seeing at the moment in the polls, the most recent one, the post-Freshwater poll of this morning, in which National is bleeding support. In fact, it's lost almost 25-30% of its support on current polls it had on election night. But it isn't bleeding it left. It's bleeding it in particular to New Zealand First, whose poll rating, I have to say this morning, rather sums up that we prefer people to have definite views with definite ideas and definite leadership skills. Harete Hipango, now very much a New Zealand First sympathiser, appeared at their conference and she joins us now. Harete, lovely to have you on the show. Welcome back.
Thanks, Michael. Great to be back.
Yeah, you are, aren't you? You just got ahead of the crowd, really, didn't you, eh? Or did maybe you followed the crowd? But there is a bleeding, obviously, in support at the moment. My wife's actually a pretty good example of that, from National to New Zealand First.
Yeah, that's right, Michael. Following the crowd, I think I'm very much part of a movement and momentum that's realising Winston Peters, Shane Jones are calling out New Zealanders and New Zealand for what it is, and unashamedly so as well. So I've listened to your lead-in, and Winston Peters was vilified by the Greens and New Zealanders for taking a stance on Palestine, whether to declare that a state or not. And we've seen those developments in the last 48 hours. So New Zealand First, and don't we live in God's zone when what's going on over there is so far removed from our reality? Yeah. So what we're going to talk about this morning is probably, in the scheme of things, minor, but it's important for New Zealand and what's happening here leading up into the elections. And you've touched on what's happening in the Maori Party, and it's a dog's breakfast at the moment for them.
Okay, can I just ask on that? I made an observation this morning, Harete, that the formation of the Maori Party actually happened just down the road from you, literally. Yes. With Dame Tariana Turia, I think she won a by-election initially to kick the whole thing off after she'd left Helen Clark's Labour Party over the seabed and foreshore issue. Tell me, now, give me, what was her home marae? Was it Ratana or was it somewhere close?
Well, actually, Tari ended up at Wangaihu marae, and that's a marae that she and her husband George, they did massive renovations in the Renaissance of. But Tari also, she affiliates to Putiki, so you'll be familiar with Putiki.
That's yours as well, isn't it?
Yes, it is. So those were her childhood to teenage developmental years. And then she also spent some time at Ratana Pass. So those three marae, Wangaihu, Putiki and Ratana. And we claim her very fondly and affectionately as one of ours. And as is known, and what's being debated before the House at the moment is the foreshore and seabed legislation yet again. And Tari crossed the floor, left the Labour Party on that and developed the Māori Party back in 2004.
It's a Maori Party, though, that's almost indistinguishable from the one that's here 20 years later.
Yes, it is.
She would be horrified at the antics, I would suggest to you, over the last week or so.
Tariana and her co-leader, Peter Sharples, and then subsequent leaders, I see Te Ruro Flavel has made recent comment as well. They always acted with a sense of decency and respect, and they upheld those values. And that was obvious in terms of their conduct as parliamentarians and as leaders of the Māori Party. And it's highly questionable now what we're seeing. It has evolved to be a very different form and style of leadership. And I would have to say that I'm dismayed, as are many Māori and New Zealanders, frankly, at the antics, the performative politics that's going on. And the Māori Party really need to question themselves about what is it that they're achieving. And what I'm seeing in many more New Zealanders is a greater divide, a more divisive society. And that's what they're portraying and dominating in the House. And disappointingly also with the new Member of Parliament, Harete Hipango-Brownlie, she was so disrespectful of the tikanga, which are the rules, the regulations, the standards that parliamentarians abide by. Not only required, but we ought to as a representative of New Zealand and New Zealanders and the constituents that appoint or elect us into that role.
Though,
Sorry,
isn't Parliament isn't the Speaker or Parliament in some ways, Harete, accountable for that? Haven't they offered far too much latitude in the past for a bad behaviour?
I listened to the Speaker, Jerry Brownlie's coming back and his assessment of the poor conduct from both Oreni and the Māori Party and also the members in the gallery, her supporters. And I thought it was fairly weak and it was a bit of a slap across the wrist with a wet tissue. So I think it's a matter of both. The standards to be upheld with a measure of robustness by both the Speaker, and I'm not criticising the Speaker, it's an observation. I think other New Zealanders would share a similar view. But also the leadership and the members within a party are required. We know that we set the tone, and the tone in terms of how we conduct ourselves is really going to exemplify what the purpose is for why we're there. So I think Te Pāti Māori, the leadership there, they've been in chaos at the moment and they've had challenges like other political parties do. And seeing the developments over the last 24 hours and email coming out and how it's been played out through the media, there's a lack of kotahitanga, there's a lack of unity within their caucus, and that's got to have direct bearing on the leadership. And we saw in the news just earlier this week or last week where there was this grand announcement by the leadership of the Maori Party around their reset, and that's where there'd been a loosening and lack of form internally. But no sooner had that reset been announced in the Grand Hall at Parliament than the co-leader, Rawiri Waititi, he cuts Debbie Ngarewa Packer off from responding to a question from Mikey Sherman about the claim by Eru Kapakingi around, what was it, the term that it's a dictatorship.
Yeah, Eru Kapakingi's criticism.
We see Waititi grabbing his co-leader by the arm and pulling her away. That was a fine example of dictatorship. And again, the leadership is setting the tone for the party and its members.
The argument or accusation, I mean, I've talked about Eru Kapakingi and I won't stop talking about that until Auckland Law School do something, but the leadership or the criticisms of Eru Kapakingi and his mother have essentially been that they've misused their family connections for personal gain. And that's the underlying, and then of course Eru Kapakingi's appalling behaviour at Parliament, which led to him being trespassed or dismissed. I don't know which of those. That still isn't plain. But I'm interested in the allegations of nepotism and corruption, because don't they also flow through, ironically, to the leadership of Te Pāti Māori, Harete? I mean, don't they also? Aren't they all family aligned? Haven't they all been receiving public monies for a variety of commercial and political purposes? I mean, doesn't their accusation directed at the Kapakingis stink of hypocrisy?
Well, listening to all of this and seeing how it's playing out, it is somewhat of a tragedy, and my mind turned to Romeo and Juliet, where there's been a falling out of love between the two
that one didn't
families.
come to mind.
Yeah, well,
Who's Juliet?
Leah and the others, but
Don't settle for a fake snarler when you can have Beard Brothers' premium range of all-natural sausages. Proudly New Zealand made, you'll find them fresh in your local Foursquare, New World and Pack and Save. Beard Brothers, crafted with care the old school way.